Greetings and welcome. I'm PsychicMediumRoberto, and I truly hope you're doing well. I'm blessed to be guided by Spirit. Trigger warning: the subject matter is of a mature nature and deals with true crime events. Disclaimer: all cases are treated as alleged until proven in a court of law. So I'm going to be doing a case study looking at the unfortunate Laci Peterson murders. And we know that she was well advanced in her pregnancy, I believe 8 months. And of course the unborn infant passed when the mother passed, unfortunately. And recently there's been a series on Netflix, which I had a look at. And some of you also recommended looking at the Laci Peterson case. So thank you very much. And now it turns out that Scott Peterson, along with the Innocence Project, are now believing that he's innocent with new evidence. So we will keep an eye on that situation, but I found that quite surprising, actually. So we're going to do a profile on Laci, and then we'll look at the comparison of the two with Scott and his date of birth, and then we will look at the actual situation when it went down. And so Laci was born with the maiden name of Rocha, and excuse me if I've pronounced it incorrectly. And we note the LAC in her name brings around the 1677, and the ROC brings around the 369, and the combination is a 167. So this which has just dawned upon me actually, because having had a look at this already, and I've been working on this for a while, and we'll go deeper, but just as an overview, the date of birth of Laci and Scott Peterson surprisingly does not bring around any matches whatsoever. There are 0 matches with either of their date of birth. Okay, now let's just put an asterisk there and say, well, it can happen, but very curious, to be honest. And this is why I'm just going to quickly just say, I do offer a free toxicity test. I do offer it to our members. Thank you very much, members. Thank you. But I do offer free toxicity tests. So if you, in the month of September 2024, and from when this plays out, please send me an email. I'll do like a 3 pros, 3 cons with the 2 of your date of births, all right? Just because, some situations can be avoided. And if there's any doubt, let's have a look at it, all right? Now, the question I was having is, how could this have happened? All of this happened. And as I was saying, there's no matches in their date of birth. We note that also Laci was 27, and she was in a 9 year at the time of her passing. And Scott was a 30 with an outcome 3. And he would go on to a 4 year, and she would have gone on to a 1 year. Now, even by the sequencing of the year and the year that they were in, doesn't correlate either. So, for one, there's no matches with their date of birth, as well as they were not in sync with each other. And I believe the answer lies in Scott Peterson's date of birth. So let's look at his first. When you look at his date of birth, we see a lot of 10 ones. So the song in the head playing at the moment is money, 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 money. That's all he was about. He was about the group. He was about the friend group rather than the family group as well, by the way. I believe this family situation was a bit of a front. Because in the middle here we have 16-7. Now, on a human being level, because 16-7, as mentioned before, is a psychic number, but on a human being level, 16-7 is the chameleon. Is the con man, is the con artist. 16-7 in the negative. If you've got a 16-7 like I have, I'm talking about in the negative. Okay, so when humans behave badly, left to right, plus minus, here's Mr. Chameleon. Okay, Mr. Bullshitter. And he was actually a shit salesman. He used to sell fertilizer. And I suppose being a salesman, you do need to put on the show as well as put on the persona. Now, what concerns me about Scott Peterson, and I'm looking at this obviously the negative aspect, right? I'm not going to do a positive aspect on Scott. I'll do a positive aspect on Laci. That's just the way it is. The issue here with this guy, with all these 8s, when pushed in a corner and let's say maximum pressure test. So what was the pressure test in this case? Laci was pregnant. And like her mom said in the Netflix interview docu-series, he didn't want kids. In fact, he was quite adamant about not having kids. And I believe the reason why he didn't want kids because it cramps his style. He will have a little nest at home like with Laci as a matter of convenience. The front room or the front staging of his life, he's married to Laci and they're having a kid. But we know meanwhile he was busy elsewhere as well, for the 3rd time apparently. So what do we have here? We've got this guy with all his 8s, and now with the kid coming round and let's say very much a reality, being 8 months pregnant. I believe this freaked him out and was freaking him out. And I believe, and we'll get there, on the evening in question, which is from this zone, the red here, between these 2 zones here, there was a blowout, and I will get there. But when 8s are pushed in a corner, can be very aggressive, very violent. The type of guy to leave a bruise on the chin. Do you know what I mean? So, very aggressive guy in worst case scenario. Okay. And when he was doing all his interviews and talks and playing it cool, Mr. Chameleon, Mr. Disguise. So with Laci, born May 4, 1975, she has the 5 from the May, the 4 in the day, which then the 5 and the 4 gives us the 9. So that is pretty much Laci in the day was the 9. Now I'm not sure what she did during the day or if she was working or stay at home, but 9 is quite a higher learning number. I haven't done background into what she did or degrees and so on, but the 9 with the 5 and the 22-4 and even the 13-4 can make her very studious. I would say she would have been the old phrase, and I was myself, so I'm going to say it, a nerd. I believe she would have been a bit nerdy in school, definitely. Of course, as you get older, you mature and you become fun, etc. But there's the nerd within Laci here for sure. 5 also brings around the artistic elements in her. Excuse me. I just recalled an image of her and her friends dancing and performing and theatre. That's also here in the 4s. Writing, the editor. And the 22-4 with this power number here, that's when people have a 22-4 in this life, that is a calling to build things. And it doesn't necessarily only have to be brick and mortar. Whatever she decides to do. So, for example, if she wanted to build a large family grouping, there's the propensity for that. But it's the builder. In other words, Laci wouldn't be dealing with small things in the main. So, and just to go back to the names here, with the outcome 7. Now, this is the unfortunate thing about 7s. If we had to look at one flaw in a 7, is they're very trusting people. And they will take people they don't take people necessarily at face value. Because 7 is also about intuition, link with the spirit, right? So you're always seeing, in my case, because I do have a prominent 7, I'm seeing aura and light and information around people as opposed to who they actually are in front of me. So as we get older, we work on these 7s to say, well, who's actually standing in front of us? Is that really the person that I know? Or is he putting on a front for her, which is the front for the public, but meanwhile behind the scenes he's doing other stuff? Now, I know this is going to sound a little bit weird, especially to her close friends. Well, from a public point of view, we see her as being jovial, fun, outgoing, right? But when someone has a lot of 4s and 9, they're actually quite introverted. And I would just say, of course, being around friends, it's different. But at her home, in her homestead, when she's alone, she goes deep, deep, deep in the mind with all the 4s and the 9. And, like the 3 friends said in the video, they speak to each other now about what's going on in life, in their respective lives, because you just don't know what's happening behind photographs and happy pictures. So let's have a look at the sequence of events as we know it, right? And keeping in mind that this guy now believes he's still innocent, right? So December the 23rd into December the 24th is where the sequence, I believe, happens. And according to reports, the last time anyone speaks to Laci is around 8:30. So in the zone here. So from the sequence here. And then, of course, we have the December 24 situation where Scott, according to his record, leaves her, sees her at 9 a.m. and he goes out fishing. And on his return, having had his pizza and beer and shower, realizes then Laci's missing, right? Now, that all takes place in this zone here and this zone here. So we're going to go top down into the day sequence. And then on the right, we've got the reflection summary zones 3, 6, 9. So in my opinion, having reviewed this, December 23rd, that evening is when things started going down. So in my opinion, so December 23rd, that evening, we see a very, let's just zoom in here. This is the issue, and him being, let's just go back here, beg your pardon, I just want to just remind you, him being in a 33-year, 3 with a man that's out of control, speaks about control issues. Now, according to some reports, he had 2 affairs before the final one, as we note with the lady from California, right? I believe in this sequence of events here, that came up. Because here's it here. On December the 23rd, we see 39-12-3. That is forcing someone into a situation. Then we see an outburst, 33. Then someone is trapped. And the issue is, when we get round to December the 24th, there's already an issue here. There's a murder that's already happened. Now, if we look in the +3 reflection zone, and this is taking place within the home, in the reflection zone, what do we see? 26-8. There's an argument going on. There is physical fights going on. There can be a physical fight with this 26-8. And remember, he's got lots of 8s. Huh? There's an unlawful act that takes place, 11-2. And there's 33-6 murder. And this is why I believe before midnight of December the 23rd, Laci had already been murdered. And the reason it's reinforced by the following reflection day, which would be the reflection of December 24, beg your pardon. We see a 27-9. That's premeditated murder. So, to give you perspective, by midnight into the morning of December 24th, Laci had already been deceased by someone familiar, 24-6, and we know she was living with Scott, or they were living together. No mysteries there, 24-6. So 15-6 is the arsehole. Is the arsehole behaving badly? So, in my opinion, it's very clear that Scott Peterson, I believe, murdered his wife, pregnant wife, on the evening of December the 23rd. Now, with this 15-6 around, it also says, beg your pardon, with this 15-6 around, I believe she was aware of the current affair at the time. And that's what started this whole debacle. And in many ways, I also believe that Scott Peterson was trying to get rid of Laci so that he can continue his illicit affair with another woman who, according to her testimony, had no idea that he was even married. So Mr. Liar pings on 16-7, ladies and gentlemen. 16-7. Mr. 16-7. In all fairness to the law, because he was actually sentenced to death, but the appeal found that the jury weren't prepped or prepared around death penalty judgments. And now the Innocence Project is involved because, according to what I've read, they believe they have evidence to prove he's not guilty. Wow. And tragic loss as well, because she was 8 months pregnant. So in my opinion, there's no doubt that Scott Peterson is responsible for the murder of Laci and Connor Peterson. And how tragic, man. And there's money issues here, huh? This guy was into money. Look at all these 10 ones here. Mr. Moneyman. You'll recall the 1910 ones here. Look at all these 1910 ones here, all about the money, or wanting to get more money. And we see here in the +6, murder, before the next day, and he is a right sod, in my opinion. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let me know what your thoughts and comments are. I do love engaging with them. Please stay safe, stay alert, and thank you very much for watching. Bye for now.